Don't sit down, stand up. Go, no, keep playing.
You are a cunt. You are a cunt.
Listen to the words.
You useless cunt.
This is what people think of you. But they don't tell you. You know people that are cunts, but you've never told them they're a cunt, have you? You haven't even disagreed with them. All your life you've given them tacit approval. Because you're a cunt. Sensitivity equals poverty. I've never met a sensitive person that had a quarter, 25 cents, 5 euros. In my whole life, 74 plus years. My grandmothers were sensitive people. Both died poor. Last night I got up at 2:38 because I heard people talking about, I got up with my baseball bat. And then I heard your voice and a couple others. I said, oh, okay, then I went back to sleep because I wondered where the fucking guard was. That's how I get up. I get up, I had a knife in one hand and a baseball bat in the other hand. You would have called 911 and sat there underneath your sheet. Right?
No.
Oh, I know. You're just a bad motherfucker from Colombia. I eat your head off and shit down your neck for breakfast. Sit down, please. Now, we're not going to talk about the SEAL guy, the lone survivor. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the guy. The guy is obviously a brave guy, yada, yada, yada. And we're going to get to the goals, but if your goals aren't this, then you didn't get it. Bold, unrealistic, bodacious, over the top, unconventional, can't accomplish in my lifetime. And I'll explain what that means. Now just think about the goals that you put on the paperwork before you got here, how they relate to this. They don't, right? They're not bold. They're not unrealistic. They're bodacious. Several of you had time schemes associated with them. You saw Mr. Carnegie last night. The biggest asshole of all time. Now, before you got here, I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I know the answer to my question. Did you have any idea that virtually every high-performance person that has created tens of billions was an asshole? No. That's why you thought you were still on the right track, which is laughable. To a man, woman, or it, because we got a few its out there, they're assholes. Dating back till, I don't know about Adam and Eve shit, but anyway, dating back a long time. How is that possible with all the personal development and all? Some of you had spent a lot of money on shit, which was just, you might as well, piss it down a rat hole. How could you get to the age that you are, 26 on the young end and 40, senior 40s on the other end, and think and not know that all these guys are hard as fucking nails? They'd rip your heart. I mean, how could you? Other than the fake news that's written about them. But I've already illustrated to you, you can find out this information. Just type in their name and fraud. Just type in their name and lawsuit. Just type in their name, in some cases, pedophile. But you never typed those names in, did you? Did you ever think of it? Now this I want to realize. Did you ever think of going one layer more to find out who this fucking asshole was? You certainly did with me. Before you risked your little pennies? Did you ever think to see, what kind of guy is Elon? What kind of guy was Steve? And Steve, because he's dead, God rest his soul, is the only of the guys that they talk a little negative about. But he's dead, so he can't fuck with you. Nobody talks about the live guys that way because they'll fuck with you. What is the, other than Andrew, I mean, he could, I think, stand under my elbow. Here, he was so little. What about Andrew Carnegie? Yes, ma'am.
He's ruthless, but same time.
Ruthless. I like it. Ruthless.
Same time, he changed the American industry at the time. It's tremendous.
Do you think he could have done it if he was sensitive? Do you think he could have done all that if he was a sensitive human being? What else? What else? Yes, sir.
His formative experiences really set the stage for his life. He saw how the loom got put out of business by progress, and then he was always on that cutting edge of the telegraphs, the engines, the steel bridges.
We're a product of our social and economic milieu. That means we're a product of what's happened to us and the economics that we either were born, raised under, in his case, and it's just down the road here. One of you staying in that town. Who is it?
What's the town?
Huh? Dunfermline.
Dunfermline.
Yeah, just, 40 miles or something like that. And in that part of Scotland, southern part of Scotland, you can't go any place without seeing his name because he donated and built churches and libraries. And in America, he gave money to universities and he became obsessed towards the end of his life trying to give his money away. But he certainly wasn't a sensitive guy. What else about Mr. Carnegie? Yes, sir.
He cut his mentor as soon as that guy started being a drain, and the same thing with his CEO. As soon as things started going south, the publicity was bad. He blamed him for everything.
You'd still be having the same people, either because you didn't have the balls to do it, or because of some empathy, sympathy bullshit. And you'll notice that all the guys that we didn't study any gals yet, and we won't, other than the gal that didn't take a day off for 26 years. But all the guys lack two things, empathy and sympathy. It's not part of their DNA. It's not part of their makeup. It's certainly not part of their vocabulary. And you have been taught that it's good to have empathy. It's good to have sympathy. And remember I said the first day, when you had toys, share your toys with Johnny. Fuck Johnny. Huh. Fuck Johnny. Or Alice. Yes, sir.
Is that what you did with your kids?
Yes. Fucking A right. It's up to Johnny's parents to buy the fucking toys. Not me. But when I was growing up, everybody wanted to be around my house just in case my dad came home. Because he was like a Marvel superhero. And the kids were all afraid of him, but they wanted to be there. When's your dad coming home, Danny? And I'm hoping he didn't come home myself, Now, fuck. And at our house, growing up, the kids wanted to be, when's your dad, me? They'd ask, our three children, they used to call me Mr. P. When's Mr. P coming home? And our kids, like me, well, fuck, we hope not for 4 or 5 weeks. Because I made the kids accountable. What else about Mr. Carnegie? Yes, sir.
I like how he used his experience in the telegraph by creating a network of spies to maintain control over his assets, people, and get informed.
And all these guys have networks of people. That's how Pinkerton's got started, the Scottish private eye firm. I believe Ford used them. And in those days, they used clubs. That's how you took care of the unions in the good old days. You fucking beat their heads open. I believe, metaphorically speaking, of course, I believe in that same methodology even today. What else about, yes, sir?
He was never satisfied production-wise. Anyone who missed the mark was fired.
And when I'm in marketing and sales, and almost every organization has some form of marketing and sales, and a great deal of it is online, nets, etc. But the goals that I set, remember I told you when I walk into a deal, I don't say, did we make any sales last night? How many sales have we made this morning? But our sales goals, whenever I'm involved in anything, are over the top, bold like this. And guess what? They hit them. They hit them. Of course, again, financial motive must prevail. They're rewarded handsomely when they hit them. And too many of the organizations are run like by skinflints. They want to see top line driven, but they don't want to see marketing guys or sales guys making 7-8 figures. And in a lot of these organizations, because they're selling big tickets, when you sell a software program to Kuwait or to Argentina or wherever, you're talking about tens of billions of dollars, and the fees and commissions associated with that should be millions of dollars for the salesman. What else about Mr. Carnegie? Yes, sir.
In the end, Carnegie was the motivated seller.
Yep.
Schwab,
at the very end.
Schwab got to him. He was thinking about legacy. Schwab asked him for the price. They did the deal.
Yeah. He was, and he, as the model that he used all his life, became the motivated seller. Now, someday you're going to be the motivated seller. The first exit, the second exit, the third exit, etc. And although Mr. Carnegie bought and sold a lot of stuff, he only had one major exit. He had one major exit when he sold out towards the end, and then he went around trying to give his money away. Yeah.
And he didn't dream big enough at the same.
Yeah, he could have dreamt bigger. He dreamt pretty big, but he could have dreamt bigger. Now, hindsight's 20/20. Okay, we can look back, and he could have done this, and he could have done that. But when he was doing all those things, they thought he was fucking nuts. If people don't think that you're crazy when you go back and start implementing this and executing, something's not right. The first people that are going to think that you've gone wacko are your significant other. Okay, the next are probably your kids if you've got kids. The next are your parents. And then the guys and gals you hang and chill with are going to think that something happened to you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's like when you watch the video, you can see the QLA form in place.
And this is his model, and I don't want to steal it from him. He didn't call it that, but it certainly is.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, he had a vision. He had the vision of a park, what he wanted to be as a kid. The vision of his mother when they rode the couch, and these things came true.
Yeah, and then when the mother wanted to go drive by back to the town they were from in a coach and have everybody know that they're rich now, and a lot of the disincentives and incentives that you have been raised with are directly or indirectly come out of your mom and or your dad. That's why it's, if your dad was a drug addict, it's not impossible, but it's very difficult because we do not what they tell us to do. We do what we see them do. If your dad never worked, collected, unemployment and all that stuff, and then you're here, they are living vicariously through you because you've already superseded what they did. But they did nothing. And the hardest thing to get through the skulls of the kids in the last 26 years, from my point of view, is that I know you've accomplished a lot vis-a-vis your family. Otherwise, why would you say I'm the first guy to go to college and university in my fucking family? Who gives a fuck? Are you president of the United States? No. But based on comparing what the rest of your family did, it is a big deal. To the family. And indirectly, you've adopted it for you. But in the realm of the world, in the cosmos of time, it's not a fucking fart in the wind. Now, I am a big deal. We had a guy here about 5 years ago from East LA, 4 blocks over from me. 4 blocks. And he was a successful real estate developer from Colorado. And he went and worked in Vegas, and he parked cars at Caesars. And then he got to be the head guy, the guy that is the head guy that parks cars, and he waltzes you in, he's got the big hat and shit like that. And I didn't know those guys could make that much money. And so he saved up his money, he bought some real estate in Las Vegas, he sold it, and then he went to Colorado, became a property developer. But he says he's from 4 blocks over. He went to the same grammar school I did. And he said there's a myth, an urban myth about a white albino Mexican. Blue-eyed, light-skinned, because he's the most successful to ever come out of that area. But he says the myth, 30, 40 years before me, there was a white albino Mexican. And of course, the rest of the myth, he could walk on water and all this other bullshit, which some people say I can. But, and he says, and now I know who it was. And, so we're the two most successful people that ever came out of that area. 2 years later, we had a Vietnamese kid come to, because after the Vietnam War, the Cambodians and Vietnamese shoved out the Mexicans of my part of East LA, and they moved there, okay? And then they brought their mothers, their sisters, their cousins, and everybody and their dog. And so the kid 2 years later was from that same area, went to the same grammar school we did, and he knew of the rich albino Mexican from that area, which apparently was me. But the kid, to his Vietnamese parents, who ran a dry cleaning, they had 3 or 4 dry cleaning, and they were now the richest people in that neighborhood. Because nobody ever owned shit when I was there. They just worked for a living, manual labor. But just as I'm held out in my family as accomplishing a lot, but I have accomplished a lot, not as much as I wanted to. So when you look at yourself in comparison to this, in comparison to the leap that Andrew Carnegie made from down the road here, now there's 2 stories about how he came to America. One story, 12 years old, with his parents after they shut down the looms and they were starving to death. They came. I like a better story. When he was 7 years old, he hid out in the hull of a ship and he went there by himself. I don't care which story is true. The fact remains that he became, enormously wealthy. What else about Mr. Carnegie? Yes, ma'am.
His mother taught him that look after Penny. Penny will take care of you. He took that to the heart. He cut cost anybody as much as possible for unions and to make this business work.
Well, he didn't like unions, that's for sure. And that was at the beginning of the unions. And the unions had a place because the average American guy and gal wasn't making enough money to support his family. And that's what the unions, how they started. Now, it's a different story. It's a different story. Yeah, okay. Take it back. Okay. We're going to go through the requirements of the weekly report. I haven't done this with any other seminar group, but I'm going to do it with this group because there's a misconnect. When it says that if you don't do this in 15 days, you can be thrown out, I don't know, maybe you can't read English. I don't know. So I'm going to read it to you. So then, whether you can understand English or not, you can't say that nobody told you. I think that you just skip that part because you don't want to know. But getting back to Mr. Carnegie, what else about? Yes, sir.
He was never afraid or indecisive when it came time to go step up and make a decision, whether he had authority or anything.
Stop. Whether he had authority. I'd rather have ask for forgiveness than permission. You've led your whole lives, for the most part, the opposite. Oh, I know I shouldn't have done it. I'm laughing. I shouldn't have done it. But I did it anyway. And I did it anyway. Most people, even though most people are afraid to make the decision, not because they're going to have to ask for forgiveness, but because they're afraid they're going to get it wrong. They're afraid they're going to get it wrong. And in the beginning, it's a cheap cliche, the road to success is filled with many mistakes. I call them speed bumps. And it is. But if you don't take them, and just like the first investment experience that my dad had was bombed out, he never made another one. Some people don't even make the first investment in their life. Some of you today, not today, but this week, the money that you've invested in yourself is the first investment you've made iffy. investment, because even though you've seen all these people that have done it, that we've showed you on webinars, you're still not absolutely 1,000% confident that you can do it. Now, if I had a gun to your kid's head, we'd have a lot more up there. And that's how it should be. Because if you can't do this, you ought to kill yourself. Or let me kill you. You saw Andreas, right? You can relate to Andreas. Absolutely. The only thing he didn't do was, but he is German. No question about it, correct? Well, almost all the Germans are that way. And that's why we have so many Germans on the Hall of Fame. And again, it's a good thing they didn't wake up Hitler. I mean, we'd be all saying Sieg Heil right now, because they would have stopped us at Normandy. What else about Mr. Carnegie? Yes, sir.
But because of his vision, he seemed to get some sort of serendipity by meeting Frick at the hotel, and Frick was the biggest Coke.
Not Coke that you're snorting. That's not that Coke, kid. So, okay, go ahead. Yeah.
For the Colombian.
Yeah.
And so basically, even with his mother, there's a bit of a codependence there, but his mother seemed to help him for business and said, how can you help me at the meeting? And then when she died, he bloody married Louise because she was the right person after his mother. So he just had the vision, and people came and went based on his vision.
And the people that he associated himself with were he was batting in a league or two ahead of himself, and in some cases 10 steps ahead of himself. And just as I was gravitated by extremely successful, wealthy people, and I was, I associated with the Onassis people. There's no way humanly possible. One, I'm not Greek, okay? Although I can change the story if, the second biggest Greek newspaper about a year ago interviewed me, and to read the big article, front page article, you would have thought that I was related to Greek mythology. But I wasn't Greek. I was very young. I had no experience in the shipping business, container business, yet I showed myself to introduce myself to Mr. Grazos, and he kind of more or less adopted me, and the rest is history. But I went out of my way to find him after I knew who he was, and I've done that many times. And that's how I got Jim Newman to be a mentor, because I knew about Release Your Brakes. And I knew that he had a stable of a lot of very high-performance people. And so I went out of my way to introduce myself and meet him. Anything else about Mr. Yes, sir?
He was good at speaking one thing and doing what he actually wanted.
Correct.
Trade unions wrote their quote-unquote manifesto.
Yeah.
Crushed them.
I actually think he was torn by his upbringing.
Sure, he was torn. I mean, when you're living in the house that he was born in is still around, and it's about this big, the whole house. And they were poor. Now, they weren't poor when they had the looms going. They weren't poor. So he went from, but he was young, but you remember that shit. He went from relatively well off to fucking flat ass broke. And Sally will tell you, she remember, although her mother says it's impossible that she knows this, because Sally was raised in a little caravan about this big, family of 4. And she knows what the curtains were in the kitchen part of the caravan. She knows what color the sheets were. She remembers what the trash can color was. You put trash in. And her mother, Jo, it's impossible. We moved away from there when she was 5.5 or 6. I mean, Sally can tell you, what was in the refrigerator. And you remember that stuff. And I'm sure Mr. Carnegie remembered it. And some of you, the dirt eater and the leave eater and a couple others in here, they probably understand their definition of poverty. But my dad made $142 a month as a cop. 142. He had to work 2 extra jobs to put food on the table. He worked for security for May Company, and he worked security for Sears and Roebuck. until he got promoted up the line where he made a salary. This was after World War II. He made a salary that he could raise a family on. And we lived in that little area. He was the only policeman in that area. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
He saw his father, what happened to him when the industry changed, and he never lost the sight of having a long range of the visions of the company, so he reinventing himself over and over and over.
Momentum is a wonderful thing when you're riding the wave. You're riding the tsunami. But most people don't know how to get off the wave because all waves end. And how do they end? They end crashing on some shore, right? So more or less it ends in tears. But when I tell you 5 years from now, one of you is going to contact me and say, I got the world by the ass, I'm doing this, I've made 200 million, blah, 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 blah. And I very seldom comment unless I'm asked. But when I'm asked, I said, well, how long is this trend going to last? I've talked to a couple of you about we're in the 11th year of a bull market, where every day it makes a new record in the bull market. Okay? And I don't know, but I know most from the kids that I know, very, very few of them are planning or have any, and I don't mean contingency plans, I don't mean plan B, but what happens when the momentum's slowing down, and the momentum has already slowed down? You know, it's the fifth quarter for Manhattan real estate to have not gone down in value, Manhattan real estate. I told you it's the fifth or sixth quarter Mayfair real estate to have gone down. Yet nobody's talking about it because they don't want it to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And part of the reason they say about Manhattan real estate is because the tax law changed vis-a-vis foreign ownership to come in and buy. And so a lot of the foreign money, mostly Middle Eastern money, some Chinese money, isn't going there anymore because there's no real benefit other than owning a piece of real estate. And a lot of Middle Eastern people, Asian people like the idea of owning a piece of Manhattan. You know, I don't know if vogue's the right word. Plus, it's hard to lose money in Manhattan real estate. Although people that are old, my age, can remember the two down legs in real estate prices in Manhattan when prices went 20, 40, 50% down. But he was reinventing himself. And the great thing about the QLA model is when you're doing it not cycle by cycle, but your cycle every 3 to 5 to 7 years, and then you have an opportunity to step back. Am I going to do it in healthcare again? Am I going to do it in this and then? Am I going to do it in this or whatever you're going to do? So you have an opportunity. Now, for some of you that are, not just you, but people that have come through the seminar, want to build a legacy business, they want to leave to their kids. That's more of a challenge because we don't know if the momentum's going to stay. We don't know if the momentum's going to stay. Yes, sir.
He made his managers accountable, and they used to work 12 hours 7 days a week.
A short day, anyway. 12 hours. Yeah.
After he took over the company, he puffed it up, made it bigger. It was bigger than all the UK steel companies combined.
Yes, sir.
It's pretty wild that JP Morgan was able just to use debt to buy something.
Debt! Thank you. Yeah. I was going to bring that up. Yeah. Nobody put in equity. Only you guys that put up equity. Oh, what's the loan to value? What's the LTV? I'm telling you, only morons put real money in. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but not much. All the guys we've talked about got wealthy off of debt. And I still remember in my neighborhood, they used to have mortgage burning parties. When you paid off your mortgage on your house, they'd have a barbecue and they'd burn the mortgage. And the second or third time I saw that, I said, okay, brain dead, what proof do you have you own the fucking thing? And they all go, Some of the properties were registered. Obviously, they should. And if a bank had a lien on it, it would have been registered. But they have a mortgage burning parties. And as Anelli said, he thought that he was smart because he had no debt and he'd built his company up over 18 years, had 169 employees. And he says it was really the most stupid thing I could do. That, and especially now. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Well, he was, I think in his late 30s, going to retire, and then he read that book on Spencer.
Yeah.
And he read 30 fucking volumes, like a lot.
That's more than I've read in my whole life, but anyway.
Yeah, and that changed his whole perspective, and he said, I'm going to work another 30 years, and that re-engaged his vision. So by finding an author of a book changed his whole
Yeah, but I mean, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Or words of that effect. Okay, so in his life, and that part of his life cycle, it was time. No teacher fucking appeared for me to be a high performance coach. I morphed is too nice a word to say that I morphed into it, but but almost everything I've ever done in my life, I'm going to do it the best. I want to be the best. So when I got in, and then I saw that the competition was so feeble, but it's taken me longer. It always takes longer. And again, because I underestimated that you guys, not just you, but anybody that is involved in going to seminars is just pretending he's just filling up time.
The last time he wrote in his diary was the first day of World War I, and then he stopped writing in his diary, and then he got sad.
Oh, he was anti-war. I mean, he was
But he fucking fought all the time.
Yeah.
He fought people. He fought his friends.
Yeah, but I mean, see, there's intergalactic knowledge, intercontinental knowledge, local knowledge, and our knowledge. Okay? What we may think is bad for Germany and France to fight, but me ripping the head off of a distributor in New Jersey when I'm in Manhattan, that's okay. Okay? So we justify. We have just the best example of justification and blowing smoke up our own ass is how we raise our kids for the most part. Johnny, you see Johnny and what do you call it? Not your kids, and you see how they interact or how they're raised, and the results are either good or bad. As my dad used to say, well, how's your fucking program working out with your dope-head kid? Okay, but we never are introspective enough to look, well, how are my kids turning out? And again, most of you were raised, stay out of trouble, get a good education. You either got an education or you didn't. That's not the point. But that's what the line the parents went down, because that's the line your grandparents went down. And that's the line, the most kids shouldn't go to university. Our kids needed to go to university, and I told you the first day, because I have a big footprint. And for them to gain accreditation in the world, they needed to have, in our judgment, Sally's and my judgment, a pristine education, which they do. And I'm 3 units away from my master's in finance. I'm never going to finish my master's in finance because I want my kids to have more degrees than me. I've been offered it, when they give you honorary shit. Well, we'll give you three credits for work experience. I forget what they call it. No, and so I could live without having a master's in finance. But and in Germany, if I was a German kid, I would have got that master's in finance for sure because of the education. Okay, please pass in your homework. Oh no, but if you got your goals on it, don't pass in your homework. Okay, well then don't pass it in. Okay, YouTube. Thank you. It all comes at the end.